a huge issue. Like, yes, they did like introduce themselves to the other parents of the class, like a little bit more cautiously maybe at first, but everyone was generally very accepting. And since it was a small school, it kind of, they got over it very quickly. And now that I'm in high school, I'm in a much larger school. I'm in a public school, and even then, like, there's not really an issue where they have to go like make sure that everything's okay before I go do something. And I never feel that I have to like be careful of who I explain it to. Like, obviously I'm not going to go up to like some random person on the street who could like have any political view and then tell them like my story, but at least in my experience, I've never really had to lie, I guess, and say like, yes, I have a mother. So I guess it's not, you might have had different experiences,
Yeah.
but like, at least in my childhood, I've been very fortunate to not have to experience that.
So similar to Eleanor, I've had a pretty smooth ride. My education, I was in a public school from first grade through sixth grade, and now I'm in a public high school that goes 7 through 12. So fortunately, I really only have to explain it a couple times. In my elementary school, the principal was gay, my first grade teacher was gay, my second grade teacher was gay, sixth grade teacher is gay. You see where this is going. So that school was a little less of a problem. I've been really lucky, but my first school was a little less of a problem because I started explaining it to kids when we were 5. So it just always was a thing that Jean had 2 dads and no mom, and that was that. High school has been a little different. Explaining it to 13-year-olds was a little bit harder, but the friends who accepted it are still with me, and the people who don't, I just don't talk to them. And I'm actually working with my school right now. I'm also a Girl Scout, and I'm working on I'm working on my big project, and I'm going to work with my school to create a curriculum for teachers on just how to, in general, be more accepting and welcoming and make curriculums less heteronormative. And I have friends at my school who are LGBT. I have gay friends, I have trans friends, I have like friends from every kind of walk of life. So that kind of thing is just super important to me, and just to get something in there, because while teachers aren't outright rude, it's really important that they understand.
Through kindergarten and first grade and second grade and third grade, I would always just be like, I don't have a mom, I have 2 dads, 4 dads, 3 dads, whatever. I was at that stage
700.
with dads, and that's how people would just have as information in the back of their heads when people would do that. And then in 4th grade, we had a big like family project on like how we immigrated here and like our family structure, and we had a big presentation, and so we were doing it about like our internal and external families that are alive today, and then it would go all the way back to how far we can go. And then a lot of people just didn't really know because I didn't really ask. And when I went up to do my presentation, the first slide was about my dad's, and I had to do like a big explanation. And it's good to just like have your kids be able to be prepared, so that way they can know some language like that's easier for other people to understand. And I've always just kind of had it be like that. And now that I'm in 6th grade, I kind of just, because a lot of kids are more informed, I just say I have gay dads and I was born by surrogacy, and sometimes I had to explain that, and sometimes some kids already know.
One last thing before we open it up to the audience for questions. I would like to know how this is, how your upbringing has really shaped your identity as your own person, and how it's influenced choices you've made in your life, and what you're doing currently in your life, like the curriculum that you're talking about, Jean. That's a great example of it. So I'd like to hear more of that.
I wrote a one-woman show about my upbringing as a child of gay dads. It's called Upstream Swimming, and it was performed at Off-Broadway for the past 3 years. And so that was kind of my contribution. It felt really important to me to share with others, whether or not they have gay dads or not, that if you could never tell that I have gay parents unless I told you, then what makes having same-sex parents so different? So that's something that is like a huge passion of mine, more so than anybody else in my family, including my dad's. So having that connection to, when I was in high school, I created the first workshop for children of gay parents, which I ran from the San Diego LGBTQA Center. And so I had to have that, make that relationship with them, because my parents were never like super involved because they're older, and when they were having us in the 90s, it wasn't okay to be as out and proud and who you are as it is now. So that was something that I really yearned for. And so, and even today, like I'm in grad school now, and I'm still aware that my teachers will say, oh, like when talking about a reference, like, oh, like your mother's voice or something like that. And it's so, I hear it every single time, and it just confuses me why you can't just say your parents' voice. Or because like no family, especially now, the dynamics are so diverse and so different. And so that's something I'm really glad to hear that Jean's doing that, because that's just something that still, I'm 25 and I'm still hearing people who are very accepting, open-minded, and liberal people. They're not even aware that that's something that they're doing that is in turn like making people who are not the product of these, traditional family dynamics feel like an outsider, kind of. So.
Okay, another thing is kind of when you were talking about the schools, another thing that I remember used to be more of an issue but now is not so much, is like on school forms and like things where you, like school trip slips or medical forms or anything like that, it'll say mother and father. And then, so in my school, I remember my parents did talk to the principal about that, to change it to parent 1, parent 2, or parent/guardian. And so, like, it's just little things like that of heteronormativity that nobody really notices unless, like, you personally, like, have a different family dynamic than the traditional family.
Again, I live in a really, really liberal state, so the parent-guardian thing has been in place since as long as I can remember. As far as how having two dads has shaped my identity, it's made me a lot more open-minded. So, for example, I go to Provincetown a lot. We have a house there now at this point. So I have grown up seeing drag queens walking around the street. I have grown up seeing 2 men, 2 women kissing. Like, I've grown up seeing everything. So people, I'll bring my friends to the Cape with us for a week. I'll be like, hey, you want to come? We'll be walking down the street. They'll see a drag queen. They'll, like, jump back in fear. Like, it's fine. So it's just kind of, and also my friends who are LGBT, they've definitely come to me for advice at times because it's just made me so open-minded and able to understand things that other people don't because, again, openness. My parents have been so open about it with me. Yeah, and I think Lindsay said that she's the only one in her family who's as passionate.
Yeah.
I feel kind of the same way. My brother goes, why do you treat it like it's something that's so different? And I don't try to treat it like it's something that's different. I just try to make people more aware of it because others treat it like it's something that's different.
So sometimes some of my teachers will go and they'll be like, have your mother or your aunt or your grandmother or some other female person sign your reading log. And I will raise my hand, and they'll call on me and be like, hey, Olivia, what's your question? And I will call them out on it. And I'll be like, what if I don't have a mom? What if I don't live with a single female? They're like, oh, well, then just have your dad sign it. It's like, why? And then I just go, why couldn't you just said a parent or somebody that is a, like, guardian of you in the first place? Like, why did you have to say your aunt or your grandmother or your mother? It's like, not everybody has that. And I go, and what I try to do is I try to call them out on it. So that way what people can do is they know that it's not okay. And that way when they see it happen and somebody else does that and they know that it's not okay, they'll call it out. And I've seen some of my friends raise their hands and get called on before me and call the teacher out for me. And then I'll do it again just because I like to do it.
Doesn't hurt.
And I just like to be that one person. And I have a friend who's also named Olivia, and she has 2 moms, and she's like open about it, but she doesn't really talk about it that much. And like when my friends have questions about like what it's like and everything, I'll do that, and I try to be that one influence that can teach them about it and be able to have people be able to know about it, and so that way people can know, because it's important to know stuff like this so they're informed.
Another thing about identity kind of like that is my last name is hyphenated because my parents didn't want to decide. My parents each have their own last name and they hyphenated me and my brother's. And teachers will write it out as one word and I like calling them out on it. It just gives me something to do. But I don't know, that's just part of my identity too, is the hyphenated last name, and that's also a conversation starter because my school system, for whatever reason, doesn't process it with a hyphen. So it shows up as Azartengwe or some variation of that. So teachers always say, why is it your name that? And I have to explain, oh, there's a hyphen. And then it always incites the why is there a hyphen question. which is actually, nowadays it's becoming a little more common because even some straight couples are hyphenating names because women are taking on their male partner's name less and less, but it's still, some people need that explanation.